All right, welcome to Chapter 7. So, good work up through the semester so far. As I've repeatedly told you, I thoroughly enjoy your discussions that are going on. I've watched them develop over time, and you're doing a great job. Feels like you're starting to grasp this. I did not want to, following in-depth review of Chapter 7, combine it with Chapter 8. I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting a little tired of 50-minute lectures. Plus, I also want to make sure that you've got time to absorb this because, again, we've built our foundation. Chapter 6 really covered where we were, getting that strategy action meet, and now we're getting closer and closer to the tip of the spear. We're now starting to determine our actual actions. So, as opposed to the vertical that you see in the book, we're moving up that pyramid. So, what you really want to get out of this chapter is there are all kinds of tactics that you can achieve your market goals. Advertising is what everybody always thinks of when they think of, okay, we've got a marketing plan, let's advertise, make me a flyer. That is not a marketing objective. That is not a marketing tactic. That is one of the tools, but in our society of information overload, advertising in that traditional sense kind of gets lost. Consumers are looking for more. They want to know what the value proposition is, and they want to know what you're about. And it's not just advertising. You can advertise, but you need to be very specific on what it is. So let's go through this. As you start devising your tactics, what you really got to do is take that competitive marketing plan that you've done, the foundation, the first two levels that you built, as you're working up, the third level, steps 1, 2, and 3, we're getting closer to the pyramid. We're getting to that point of executing in operation. So that basis of research that we developed in steps 1, 2, and 3, when we set our vision, when we looked at what our consumers wanted, when we looked at what the actual market was happening, looked at our market share, looked at what our competitor was doing, that has set the stage. Now we bring in the 4 P's of marketing. We touched on them briefly, on the prior lecture. We touched on the 4 P's and talked about how they impact based on the life cycle. Well, the 4 P's also impact your tactics. Your tactics are really broken up in your product, price, your place, the distribution, and promotion. So we're going to take those and carry forward in devising our tactics. Here you see what we've already done. We've gotten our constituent input, we've developed our mission and goals based on our internal and external assessments and all of that research that we did using third-party information versus just our opinions. We developed our strategy action match. We're also doing a little further market research to find out what drives our consumers, what gets their attention, and that's going to help us determine our specific tactics. How are we going to get out? Are we going to use direct mail, for instance, to advertise our brand new physician in an office? Are we going to use direct sales and go out to individual physicians and convince them that they want to use our imaging services and why? There's a good example of a radiologist going out and actually meeting with people that he had been serving for 13 years and he had never sat down in the room with them. This is a relationship business, and so you've got to take that into account, and that's what that Salesforce side is also very important. It's reliable, you're responsible, and they trust you. So they start using your service. So as they start using your service, your fixed costs get covered more. We'll talk about this later. And your variable costs are incremental, and as they gain more volume, your profits actually go up. So you can change a feature, or you can change the quality of an existing service. Brand equity is critical also as you're trying to develop your marketing tactics. Are people loyal to your brand? I will tell you down here in Florida, the St. Vincent's name in Jacksonville was known very well. Clay County is a community outside, and it's about 20 miles south, 25 miles south of Riverside. And when we brought our hospital down here, I brought tremendous brand loyalty because so many people in Clay County, their families had been born and generations had been born at Riverside, or when people went for their open heart I tell the story, and I think I've told it before, that I went to the county fair in Clay County before the hospital opened. And after being out on the midway talking to people and doing some direct sales, I might say, I came back, just amazed. Have we done open heart surgery on half the men in Clay County? They're all showing me their scars, some of which I really didn't want to see. But that builds brand loyalty. The name awareness. We are St. Vincent's. People know St. Vincent's. There's a perceived quality around it, and we have an asset behind it. So really, what do we associate with St. Vincent's? We associate compassion. Individuals associate that we truly are a ministry-based organization, that our faith is very important in the care that we deliver, and it weaves within everything that we do in the entire organization. And our faith is right at the front of what we do. So we have that brand association with it that we're bringing. A couple different branding alternatives as you're going through, establishing a brand idea. You can do blanket branding. That's kind of what I just talked about. We have blanket branding under St. Vincent's. We are St. Vincent's. Every new product is a St. Vincent product. It reduces the amount of brand awareness advertising that we've got to do. The problem is, if you have somebody who's not delivering, you can tarnish your entire name. So there's a risk. You put all your eggs in one basket, you get a bad egg, you can spoil the whole basket. One bad apple spoils the whole lot, right? I think it's what the Jackson 5 told us. Most of you folks don't even remember that, probably. You've got a multi-brand where each product is branded different. We have somewhat, where it may be a St. Vincent facility, but we don't call it that. We call it something else. That way the parent organization really doesn't get the risk associated with it. There's a lot of cost in that, and the con is also you don't build brand momentum because you're everything to everyone, and you don't build a consistent message. You can sell under someone else's name. They give an example of the tools being sold under the Craftsman name. Same thing can happen here. We have resellers. We have physicians come in and work with us and brand themselves under our name, and they're selling under our name. They're taking advantage of our existing market presence. I had this happen a lot, or attempt to happen a lot, in Las Vegas when I established the Quick Care Centers. And they were UMC Quick Care, so we kind of branded under our name of UMC, but we pushed the Quick Care out there. Now, luckily, I service marked it, and it was protected. That brand name, UMC Quick Care, or even Quick Care Clinic, or all iterations of the word Quick Care, was branded. So we were able to protect that when people started building urgent cares in Las Vegas. When we became a generic name like Kleenex, and everybody referred to urgent cares as quick cares, we actually had to write several legal letters when people started opening a quick care and they started using our name, and we protected that. There were a group of physicians that we worked with that were extremely loyal to the hospital, and we were able to get them to call themselves a quick care, and we allowed them to use our name. Co-branding. Co-branding is ongoing. I mean, you look at MD Anderson co-branding across the country with hospitals. The Cleveland Clinic starting to co-brand with physician groups and with different hospitals. Co-branding is actually quite large. That's going on, and it's taking the name of one organization, linking it to it, and trying to build upon the synergy of that. The risk is you're going to be tying your name to an organization that you really have no control over. Say you link to another organization, and that organization goes through a very dire compliance issue that gets out there in the media, and that brand name completely collapses. Not due to anything that you controlled, but your co-branding collapses because of it. So there's a little bit of caution in doing that co-branding. A couple criteria for a good brand name. I'm not going to read through them all, but I mean, if you really talk about it being meaningful, distinctive, sustainable, a couple great examples in non-healthcare when Honda, Toyota, and Nissan started developing their higher-end service offerings in Lexus, Acura, and Infiniti. Look at the names they used. Toyota, Nissan, kind of tied to a legacy name, kind of tied to a family name potentially. But then when they started talking about building a finer vehicle, a more refined vehicle that they were going to increase the price, they were going to make them a more of a luxury type car and differentiate themselves, they went out and picked a name that was meaningful and distinctive and sent a message. Accurate. It's accurate. And they're trying Infinity. It goes on forever. That's something that sounds much more powerful than Nissan. What does Nissan mean? You can attach a meaning to the word infinity. In hospitals, we rebranded in Reno. We went from Washoe Medical Center. What does that mean? Well, Washoe is the county we were in, so we were named after the region, and we renamed ourselves Renown. Renown sounds meaningful. Renown is memorable. You look at Catholic healthcare, you look at religious affiliated, Saint Vincent, Saint Luke's, Saint Anthony's. We're able to put out there and we're distinctive, and it says, wait a minute, this is a faith-based institution. So we're putting those messages out there and we're taking those 8 criteria into it. Examples given back here were a clinic or emergency. You've really got to figure out how that patient deals directly with the user. What are our location? What are our hours? What's the mode of access? Are they walk-in? Can you go on the internet and make a schedule? Do you have to call and make a schedule and make an appointment? What can you do? So those are ways that you've got to bring that direct access to the consumer. And I'll tell you, specifically in the direct channels, you better go all the way back and start talking about timeliness and reliability and assurance. And make sure you're meeting those needs, because this is a direct consumer with no one else intervening and redirecting them like their physician who says, no, I know that hospital's next door to you, but I use this one 4 miles up the road. It's better because. This is someone making that decision themselves, so you've got to be able to have your brand established with them, and you've got to meet their needs. You learn those needs through the research that you've done on your community, on your market, on the perception of your facility, and the brand that you've built for yourself. Indirect channels can be managed through push and pull. The channel's indirect when they don't directly access us, like the patient going to their primary care provider, to the orthopedic clinic, then to the hospital. A push strategy means we're going to work with the physicians. I'm going to go out and I'm going to work with the physicians and convince them that when they need to make a decision on where to do their surgery or where to hospitalize their patient, they will then push their patients towards my hospital. Now that takes a lot of relationship building. It takes a lot of trust building. It takes assurance, and they know the quality of care that's going to be provided, and they know that their patients, when they come back, aren't going to be complaining. And then you've got the pull strategy. The pull strategy goes right to the end users. In other words, in that case, I'm out there marketing to the patients, telling them that you will get the best hip replacement at St. Vincent's. Period, end of story. And I am going to directly communicate with that patient for something that really, they're not the ones doing the service, the orthopedic surgeon is, but I am pulling them through the system and saying, when you access your orthopedic surgeon, you look that surgeon in the eye and say, I don't care where you're going, the best care for hip replacement in this region is at St. Vincent's, and that's where I'm going. So you see Big Pharma doing this. I mean, why do you think they advertise all day long, all night long on television, all the different pharmaceuticals with, of course, the litany of side effects that if anybody actually listened you'd be terrified to take any single pill that's out there that Big Pharma's offering. Patients can't write their own prescription, but they want the patients to come into the physician's office and tell their physician, I want X. I saw it on TV. This is what I want. Probably the scariest thing that I saw was years ago, and they're not doing it as much now. GE got into this really bad. They were very heavily, it was through the Olympics, then also at Super Bowl. They were advertising their Lightspeed scanners, that if a hospital didn't have the GE Lightspeed scanner, that they weren't a good hospital. So they were bypassing everybody, and they were actually creating demand among my consumers to force me to buy GE. Find out if your hospital has this piece of GE equipment, because you'll not get good care unless you're coming here and they have GE. So brilliant strategy on their part, but boy, kind of bordered on what I would think was right. Actually, it kind of had a little bit of blowback in the industry, that people were upset with GE trying to get out there and take a very complicated decision on very complicated devices and basically make it a brand issue. Whereas the GE product offering may not have been as complete as what Siemens or Philips had, and there's a realistic reason why you would go with a vendor other than GE, but they were putting out there in the consumer mind that there was no choice. So, it got a little touchy, but that's a pull strategy that's out there. We do a lot of it today, and so do all of the people who use our services and spend our money like Big Pharma and implant companies. Sources of power that you use for push-pull, coercive. There's a case that they talk about in the text, and as I was reading through it and reading the description, I was like, yeah, they're going to get sued, and the moral of the story was they did. When you got to the last paragraph, she sued, she won. Coercive is difficult, but I'll give you an idea of where coercive makes sense and is perfectly legal and works. That we have a very large primary care system built, and we did this in Las Vegas too. We have a very large system of primary cares. Those primary care physicians generate specialty referrals. Those specialty referrals are all centrally located in a referral office that is controlled by our hospital. We're not doing anything different than everybody else isn't these days. It was kind of novel in the 90s when we did it. Now everybody's there. But when we make the referral to the physician offices know where those referrals come from. They know they're getting referrals out of UMC Quick Care. And they know that these are, quote unquote, our patients and our population that we're managing. If they in turn take that patient somewhere else for their care, and when they get the records back to the primary care physician, that primary care physician is going to go, whoa, 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 why didn't you use my hospital? You used somewhere else, and the coercive discussion is, we're not going to send you any more referrals. We're done with you. Again, gets to be touchy, but here's the justification in doing it. I'm not going to send you referrals for patients that I'm responsible for and the population that I'm managing if I can't measure your quality. And I can't measure your quality if you don't use my hospital. I can't find out what your outcomes are, measure your quality, and know what your inpatient care or your surgical care is like if you don't use my hospital. The other source is expertise. The Mayos of the world. Oh, you've got to use Mayo. So you've got different sources of push-pull, and there's great examples in the book to walk you through. Price shopping, although I said earlier that price sensitivity has kind of been wiped out over the years by insurance companies and the way insurance is designed. And if you read that article on why healthcare costs so much, he was dead on. It's probably one of the best descriptions that I've had of why healthcare is expensive. And I've kind of got that article in my hip pocket from now on when friends ask me, oh my gosh, why is it so expensive? What happened? Why are we so much more expensive? Well, I can show you it's through cost controls that were set in place. And they actually set up programs where pricing didn't matter anymore. And so you had to move out there to protect yourself. But price shopping does take place in healthcare today where the services aren't complex. It's elective. I already have a diagnosis. Bundle prices, I pay one flat rate. And the example of this is plastic surgery. Plastic surgeons move to ambulatory surgery centers for the simple elective plastic surgeries. They pay one price. You come to your surgeon, you pay them a flat price. That surgeon then pays the ambulatory surgery center for using the facility. It comes out of their bundled price. You may pay your plastic surgeon $3,000. The plastic surgeon turns around and pays $1,200 to the ambulatory surgery center, and he or she makes $1,800 for the service. Very price sensitive. So that's what's happened. The insurance benefit structure is an incentive. There is no insurance in that aspect in elective surgery. It truly is price sensitive, and you choose lower cost providers. I encourage you not just to go with the lowest cost. I encourage you to actually do a little price quality shopping. But price will come into it. I mean, plastic surgery is it. We got a great example of LASIK surgery. But I'll tell you what's coming out there is the international threat on price sensitivity and the international hospitals that are now Joint Commission accredited that are marketing themselves with luxury stays when you're recuperating in a resort. And because of their labor structure, their lower regulatory structure that they have, their costs are 20% of a U.S. hospital. And so they're marketing and selling these things on the margin to people. It's become so big that my own company, Ascension Health, is opening a hospital in the Cayman Islands in partnership with a group out of India. And we'll be offering open heart surgery to patients and to insurance companies offshore at a lower cost and a lower rate, and hoping to target Southeast United States. If I find the article on the Cayman Island Hospital, I'll actually put it up on the discussion board for you so you can see it. But price shopping is getting more and more complex. Your price actually allows you to build traffic or market share. You can do short run and long run profits. If you're able to have demand to the point that you can increase your pricing, you may, in the short run, be able to garner higher margins. Of course, there's going to be a reaction. You're going to have a competitor come in and undercut your price. Or you put something in there where a price where you're making a fair margin or a tight margin, you make it up on volume, and it discourages someone coming in because their startup costs are too much. You want to obtain growth. So the pricing can, as I said, deter competitive entry. Different services in healthcare that you're selling are volume sensitive or price sensitive. A price sensitive service would be something like a plastic surgery. It's price sensitive. The total cost highly variable on what we use, and we're able to control that. It's based on the variability of the surgical time and support. So it's a variable cost because the plastic surgeon is buying OR time from the ambulatory surgery center on the margin. He's buying it at a variable rate. So his rates are low, but he's able to be very price sensitive. High fixed cost, volume sensitive business, a hospital. I think in the very first my very first lecture, I said at some point I would talk about a gentleman that I worked with that is pretty much known out there when you get out on the West Coast as the father of healthcare marketing, David Spransness. David was the CEO of Sunrise Hospital in Las Vegas, built it from a 60-bed hospital to the 600, 700-bed behemoth that it is today. It was a privately owned hospital. It's now owned by HCA. but a great hospital. But how he built it was David understood the concept that acute care hospitals are very high fixed business. And in the 70s, doctors didn't like to operate on the weekend, just like they don't now. So your hospital would empty out on the weekends. And this wasn't a time where everything was outpatient. If you had surgery, you were an inpatient. This was the 70s. You were an inpatient, and you were an inpatient for 3 or 4 or 5 days. So what David realized was, look, my hospital's expensive because it's empty on the weekends. I need more volume. So what he did is he actually created a program. And this is why he's kind of the father of healthcare marketing out there. He was one of the first to do this. That he created a program. If you had your surgery at Sunrise Hospital on a Friday and stayed through the weekend, every month those individuals who had their surgery on Friday and stayed through the weekend would then get their names entered to go on a cruise. And every month he would draw out those names and send somebody on a cruise. Amazing. This is all pre-Stark, pre-everything. But you can imagine what happened. There's a pull strategy that he used. Patients were coming to their doctors and saying, I want my surgery on Friday because I understand they do 40, 50 surgeries every Friday at Sunrise, and if you talk 4 weeks, I have a 1 in 200 chance of going on a full expense paid cruise. This is Vegas. Everybody figured out the odds. He got busy as heck, and expanded it if you had your surgery on Friday or Saturday, if you were there through the weekend. It expanded, it grew. Hospital was full. He lowered his fixed cost. Absolutely brilliant. That is where marketing and tactics integrate with operations and drive results. So if you look at consumer purchases and you look at where we're at in marketing and you look at how we're placing our tactics, in the awareness stage, what this really talks about is we have a lot of consumers. All of the market we've got out there to make aware. Those individuals, we start getting fewer and fewer targeted customers as we find those who have knowledge, who know more about us, who can access us based on contract, who can access us based on location, who have choice, who are satisfied, and who are advocates. So the marketing tries to capture those individuals through awareness, knowledge, perception, and then you start moving into operations, trust, reliability, assurance, choice, usage, satisfaction, and advocacy. So you've got that person out there building that image, they're making the decision to purchase the product, and then it's up to operations to take those fewer target consumers and make them true believers, who then cycle back into the awareness side and are out there helping you spread your awareness as your advocates. As you're also looking at your market tactics, you need to know where you sit in your market on the minds of the consumers. What is the perception? If you look at car rental, this is an example from the book when you talk about Hertz and Avis. Well, we have the same leaders in healthcare. 3 years ago, the perception of St. Vincent's, 4 years ago, we were, number 2 top of mind in the community. 2 very successful promotional campaigns and actually delivering on what we talked about in quality and delivering on our mission and our ministry have now put us at the top of name recognition of providers in our community. So you move yourself up the ladder. You don't want to move down it. You want to increase your awareness in the mind of your community. Everybody is trying to reach you. Everybody is hitting you from all directions. But did it stick? Is there stickiness to the advertising? And the only way you can do is get out there and research and validate it. As you actually set your objectives overall, you really want to look at what objectives a consumer goes through before they purchase. Again, you want to get in the mind of your consumer. We've talked about the mind of our customers since our very first week. You want to figure out where they're at on their awareness. Are they interested? How do they evaluate? Can you get them to try you? And then once they try you, will they adopt you as a user? I use this all the time when I meet with new physicians. I come out and I enhance their awareness through direct marketing sales, talk about the services we provide, talk about the unique quality, talk about the uniqueness of our mission. I pique their interest, and then I sit down and I say, you know what? Why don't you try this? I'm just looking for one. What days do you normally do surgery? When are you in the area? Come by and do a surgery. Just come by and see us, or come by the hospital. Let me show you our OR suites. It's that trial. They try it, they like it, they adopt it, they bring you 2, they bring you 3. Boom, next thing you know, you've got their entire block coming to you. So what are the objectives that you would work across awareness, interest, evaluation, and trial? If it's an awareness, I want to know that we're top of mind. I want to know that we've moved from 10 to 15% of people in the market know that we provide this service. If I go into the interest stage, I want to know that we're actually getting inquiries. People are picking up the phone and saying, tell me about your mental health program. And then the evaluation is actually that point that I just talked about, having a physician try you out. And then trial, we want to know that we're actually generating new patients every week, that people are actually trying us and moving business to us. Several budgeting approaches for advertising. All you can afford, yeah, well, that's kind of gone. You don't find very many places that have the all-you-can-afford advertising budget anymore. And as a matter of fact, a lot of places don't even have the percentage of revenue, because salaries are growing, supplies are growing, pharmacies growing, utilities are growing. All of those things are growing exponentially, and our reimbursement is not. Our reimbursement's going down. So really going in and saying we're always going to designate X% of our revenue to advertising, you just don't have that luxury, because so many things are changing so quickly and prices are escalating so much in the market, particularly in pharmaceuticals and supplies and implants. You want to talk about who makes money in healthcare? Big pharma and implant companies. That's who makes money in healthcare today. Competitive parity, I'm just going to advertise in the paper because my neighbor is. And, that's just keeping up. And that's really not going to be a strategy to grow. What really helps you grow in the budget is that you budget specific objectives and tasks. Sound familiar? We're moving up the pyramid. We've gathered it. We know exactly where we're going to target our market, and we market those specific objectives and tasks. This is what everybody's doing today pretty much. You don't see that shotgun approach to marketing anymore. People don't have the budgets for it. Revenues are dwindling. Costs are up. We need to have a rifle approach to marketing, to the point that we're even starting to grab big data and look at men ages 35 to 50 who have had one colonoscopy. And we're able to pull that information out and directly target them and market them. So a rifled approach is much more effective today, and that's the budgeting process you see more in hospitals and in healthcare across the country. Your conditions for effective advertising, is it really effective or not? How do we make sure that the market is right for us to advertise? People don't know who we are. It's an industry where the sales are rising, and people don't know enough about you. They're not easily observed, and you've got the opportunity to differentiate yourself. You can make yourself different. So if those conditions exist, those are the right conditions to be able to go out and market and advertise and get your message out there. But then what are you going to do? You're going to test it and make sure it was sticky. Because if it wasn't sticky, you're going to have to change it, adapt, and find out what you missed by listening to your consumers and going forward. Direct sales, the value of sales. Personal sales are valuable when it's a technical or complicated service. Sounds like healthcare, right? And the more people involved in the decision to purchase the product or service, you've got patients, you've got their families, you've got their insurance company, you've got the doctor. You've got so many individuals involved in the decision on where they go, that direct sales are incredibly important. healthcare is a relations-based product. The sales of healthcare is so much based on those one-on-one relationships and the direct sales. So you create a sales force. I, as president, lead the sales force, and I am salesperson number one. And I am out there in our community directly selling to the school district, to the parents, to the teachers. I'm selling to the industries. I'm selling to my fellow peers on the chamber board on why they want to use it. So I'm out there pushing that. And then I've got my Salesforce detail reps that are out there trying to close the sale. I'm out there talking about the values and virtues of what we've got, and then I send individuals out to bring out there to close that sale, to clarify any questions, to really monitor the satisfaction. We wanted to get you in. You came in, you saw the place. How did it work for you? What could we change for you? What can we adapt? And those are my eyes and ears to come back and change direction quickly in an organization and be nimble. So that sales force become your eyes and ears to not just close the deal, but then also make sure that you are adapting to consumers' needs quickly. How do you pay the sales force? Very important that you do a compensation plan for your sales force that is salary and commission. If you're just paying somebody a flat salary, there's very little incentive for them to go out there and make a difference and mine new territories. But if they have a commission and a bonus based on their work, and the more work they generate and the more business they mine and identify, you're able to pay them. You're covering their expenses, and you've got fringe benefits out there that they reach for. You're aligning their incentive. You're paying them for being a great salesperson and closing a sale and bringing new deals for you. So you align the initiatives. You have a strategy and action match, right, in the eyes of your individual salesperson. You really look at how this relationship goes, and boy, I looked at this graph and went, wow, that's healthcare right there. That we do a lot of advertising on the pre-purchase, and it's very important at first to get that name recognition and that brand recognition out there. But then that personal selling really comes in the purchase stage, because everybody's advertising. Everybody's out there differentiating themselves, but if I'm sitting in the room and bringing a personal touch, or my sales rep is sitting in the room bringing a personal touch, and I'm looking at a physician in the eye and saying, you have my commitment on how your patients will be treated at our hospital. You have my commitment on how well we've trained our staff. You have my commitment on the equipment that will be available for you. We will make you efficient when you come in our hospital, and we will meet your needs. That personal selling then pushes over to the purchase stage, and then the lines start to cross again as you get to post-purchase. But advertising is really good in the pre-purchase, but when you're closing the deal and then you're trying to get a repeat customer, it's all based on that personal selling and those personal relationships of marketing. So you've got two aspects really when you talk about your marketing objectives. You're out there advertising and promotion and where you're placing it, how are you distributing it, but then you get into that personal selling side of it. The personal selling is almost the fifth P. You're starting to bring everything down, and it's a part of the promotion. It really is, but it's vitally important. So when do you use Salesforce versus advertising? If you've got high technological complexity, you'll use a Salesforce. If you have a few potential customers, you'll use a Salesforce. If you have a lot and you have potential for everybody, man, market to everybody. Again, same thing. If you're using a push strategy, use a Salesforce. So if I'm out there meeting with doctors trying to get them to push their patients into the hospital, I'm going to use a Salesforce. If I want patients to come to their doctor and insist that they use St. Vincent's, I'm going to use advertising to them to convince them of why, and hopefully they'll actually carry that piece of direct mail into the physician's office and say, I want to use St. Vincent's because of this. So again, it's all about matching your strategy and your actions to the life cycle and the way the market is set up. It all integrates. I think on the syllabus I talked about integrate or die, and that's kind of where we're at. You've got to tie it all together. Integrate or fail is really what I talked about. So in summary, your market actions are based on the research from the foundation you've built, those foundations that we built on the previous chapters. Your actions should be specific and measurable, and I gave you some examples of what they would be based on different stages of the purchase and different stages in the consumer's minds. Most importantly, though, at all times, you should plan and adapt, as your competitor is not going to just sit by and watch your actions unfold. If you come up with a brilliant action that begins to steal market share, your competitor is going to react. They're not going to sit by. So it's always best to also have alternative responses in your back pocket already thought of. When your competitor does X, Y, or Z, whatever plan they execute, you've got to be right behind them again with your action so you can parry the action and move forward. All right, guys, there we go. A lot of information. We're getting into wrapping this class up as far as getting into chapters 8, 9, and 10. 8 and 9 very short. 10 is that summary, and we'll start delving into our case discussions as we go. Again, if you've got any questions, you've got any suggestions, I'm definitely open to it. Have a good week. Thank you.